All right, the court right now is going through the analysis to determine whether or not Fatima can address her concerns about her safety if she goes to Iraq. There's been an argument by the defense it should not be allowed, and the prosecution saying, yes, it absolutely should be allowed, and the judge has to decide whether or not it's A, relevant, and B, prejudicial or not. Let's welcome criminal defense attorney Colleen Kelley. Colleen, so great to have you on. Great to be with you. Tell me your thoughts as the judge is trying to determine which way to rule with that specific issue.
Great to be here, Judge Ashley. Well, she's talking about it in the context of whether it's 404B or res gestae. And what the judge talked about was res gestae is supposed to be something that happened close in time to the incident and is part and parcel of the things that happened. And in this case, it doesn't sound like it falls under that. It sounds like something that they are trying to bring in to explain her behavior and to justify her behavior so that the defense can't use it as an explanation or against her.
So let me ask you about, and I love your explanation and the legalities of it. I want to move to the first thing that the judge said. Again, this is outside the presence of the jury. They've gone to lunch, attorneys arguing. What about this? Have you ever been in a trial when you get the unexpected judge saying, hey, we have a note that juror number 12 said, I'm not feeling well. I'm not coming back today. And what do you think as a defense attorney when you hear something like this?
That is absolutely wild and totally unexpected, I think, from the prosecutor, from defense attorneys, and frankly, I think the judge is probably shocked. I have never had it happen in quite that way, where a juror wasn't feeling well or felt that they had to be excused, where they just felt entitled to walk out and not ask permission. And frankly, a juror isn't necessarily allowed to leave without prior permission from the judge. So I'm sure that has thrown everyone for a loop, and everyone is wanting to hear exactly why, what the sickness was, whether that juror is going to be able to return. However, in general, we do pick an alternate, but no, I've never had it quite happen in that way.
You know, neither have I. I have to tell you that I've been doing this a very long time, including on the bench, and the casualness with which this particular person decided it was okay to say, I'm sick, I'm going home. It's not really how our court system's designed to work. It's not really how you get excused as a juror, but I appreciate the judge said, listen, here's what I've been told. Let's put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that so you can think about it, because sometimes in managing a courtroom, you have to be able to think about these things to have a good response on the record to protect the record. And I haven't gotten just overall, before we go to a break, I'd love for you to weigh in on what you think of this case in general, the allegations against the mother, the father, the videotape, and although they can't say the words an honor killing, the thought that that is what this was an attempt to do.
And I have been watching parts of the trial. I've seen the video, and the video is pretty alarming. It's awful to watch, and some of the testimony just clarifies exactly what was happening. And in watching the opening statements of both defense attorneys, frankly, I don't know at this point what exactly their defense is. They haven't laid it out very, very clearly. And while they're leaning toward some sort of parental discipline defense, possibly, parental discipline can allow a parent to restrain a child, but it does not allow to injure a child and to choke them and injure them so severely. So I think the defense attorneys have a real tough time here, and we just have to wait and see what their argument is in closing and what they say the evidence has shown or not.
Right, and are they just going to pick apart the evidence presented by the prosecution, or are one or both of their clients going to take the stand to explain to the jury why this isn't a crime? We'll have to wait and see. Stand by. You do not want to miss a moment, because after the jury returns from the lunch break, we could hear from the alleged victim. That's Fatima Ali or her boyfriend. We don't want to miss that. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Live. Let's get right back to the attempted honor killing trial in Washington State, where the parents, Hassan and Zara Ali, are charged with attempted murder. Prosecutors say that they tried to choke their own daughter to death for refusing an arranged marriage in Iraq. Still with us, criminal defense attorney Colleen Kelley. Let me say what's going on. We know that the jury was expected to be back at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time following a break. While we're waiting for that to get started up, I wanted to ask you what I know about Juror 12. And here's something the judge shared, is that the juror apparently was extremely unhappy being placed on the jury, and then the decision was made ultimately to excuse juror number 12, and that's the reason we have alternates in every case, so the alternate can step in. Tell me your thoughts about juror number 12 no longer being on this jury, knowing that perhaps she didn't want to be on the jury in the first place.
Well, that actually surprises me that the judge would excuse the juror simply because she was unhappy to have been placed on the jury. That is 99% of our jurors in any case, and especially in a serious case like this. No one wants to be on this. No one wants to watch these videos, and most people don't want to make these important decisions about guilt or innocence. So I'm not surprised, but I am surprised by the judge simply accepting that as an answer and not enforcing that the jurors serve their civil duty once selected. Sometimes judges won't do this because that can create a domino effect, where if one juror is allowed to be excused simply because they don't want to do this difficult job, then when is the next juror going to come forward and say, oh, I also don't want to be here?
Yeah, I do agree. And that's that balancing act that the judge has to walk. And I've been in that circumstance before. It makes a difference. The judge knows the community, right? The judge knows where they are on the bench. And so the reality is she may know exactly what the effects might be or why it's best to let the juror be excused without taking it further. Some judges, I know for a fact, at least in the metro city where I happen to live, would say, oh no, if you go, deputy, go pick that juror up, go to her home, find her, bring her back in. She's answering to me. So my point is, it's all within the judge's purview to figure out how to manage their courtroom, which we all respect as a court. That's the judge's responsibility. Now, we are waiting for one of the witnesses we expect this afternoon, based on what was said earlier, is either Fatima, and that is the 17-year-old victim, or the boyfriend, Isaiah. And those witnesses, especially Fatima, the judge's ruling, let's start with her, that there cannot be specifics provided about what happened a year ago and what she might have said about being afraid to go to Iraq a year ago. And so what are your thoughts about that ruling?
I do understand that ruling a little bit because it happened the year prior. And while it may understand why she was afraid to go to Iraq and what she did on that particular morning and that she had decided to run away, it doesn't necessarily explain the mother's and the father's behavior. So in that sense, it's not necessarily as relevant as other information, such as how the father reacted, what the father had said before, any threats or specific things that the parents had done to her.
And the judge did make clear, she said, that this is not about how the daughter was treated or about her possibly being sent to Iraq, but rather about the alleged crimes against the parents. Here's what we want to do as we get ready for the jury to re-enter that courtroom and hear about the next witness. Let's take a break, a perfect time for it. When we come back, of course, we will get you back into court. You won't miss any testimony. Stay tuned.